So we've got a few minutes left here, and I want to talk about education. We have not, in the programs that we've had so far, we've had just very surface discussions about that. Let's take a couple of minutes and talk about K-12 education. So let's start with you, Representative Hausman, very quickly. What do you see happening in that K-12 area? What would you like to see happening? And let's go around the table.
It's so early in the session, we haven't really heard much discussion about that. We certainly understand from the governor and others that we continue to focus on the young child. We know the research is so overwhelming about our need to begin to invest early on, and that investment carries through their academic achievement through all of their K-12 experience. And so I'm assuming that will be one strong emphasis. There's another, and that is, as the stresses, we hear more and more about the issue of mental health of kids in school. And so the issue of funding those support personnel, school counselors, school social workers, that group of school nurses, that group that helps the teachers as the students are struggling with a lot of stresses in life. Some of that is probably they can't find an affordable place to live, or other poverty issues. There are just a number of issues that are putting stress. We hear that mental health in the schools is an issue.
I first have to say how proud I am of the residents of Minneapolis for renewing our special levy referendum in overwhelming numbers. It's a strong vote of confidence in our public schools. And the truth is, despite all the rhetoric to the contrary, when Minneapolis public schools have the opportunity to teach a child in the same school for the entire duration of the school year, the achievement that kid turns in is pretty remarkable. The issues that our schools confront, especially in the urban core, are issues of disruption and volatility and lots of mobility. And so what Representative Hausman was talking about, comprehensive services in the school that meet some of the needs that go on external to the school to help those kids get what they need in terms of health, nutrition, adult mentorship. If they're able to stay, there's some housing support services, so they're able to stay in those schools. That's really important. Early childhood education investments shown to have a huge benefit. We have this teacher shortage that we're confronting, and we took some steps last year to try to start to address the teacher shortage. This is a phenomenon that's going on around the entire country. It's not unique to Minnesota, but it's a real issue and a real problem. But it also gives us the opportunity to get the kind of teachers into our school that reflect the kind of students that they're teaching, more diversity among our teaching corps. There's a lot of paraprofessionals in our schools who maybe want to move up into the teacher track. It's called Grow Your Own program. I think that's an important initiative that we could support. So those are some of the things I hope we look at.
Some of the issues that have been brought up tonight, especially kind of the concept that Scott brought up of kind of a full-service shop for public education. Kids can go to a public school and get anything from health directives or mentorship, all 3 square meals a day. There might be some communities that have shown that there might be a need for that type of unique, acute emergency treatment for students. I'm not sure if it applies to every student. It doesn't apply to the students in my area. So if there is a need, I guess I would first look at the acute need of where it would be. Secondly, and getting beyond the full service shop, I don't think our schools were ever really equipped to do that, but we keep putting more and more responsibility on teachers, and teachers are not always equipped to handle all of the things that we're recognizing as problems in a school or in a greater community that's surrounding the school. But some of the areas that still remain a perennial problem is the education gap that we find in recognizing the racial disparities in especially the urban area of the Twin Cities. And I know that in my area, the Osseo School District is a very diverse school district, 5th largest in the state. It's got everything from a heavy concentration of English as a second language, meaning these are mostly immigrant families. They don't know English in the household, and now we have to take time out of the school year to teach them English as a new language. And at the very same time, there's unique issues there. And yet we see it just in one composite school district of the gap that we sometimes see. And the Osseo School District has done wonderful results in raising that level and putting a little more resources in unique, creative ways to grab the attention of kids, get them off the focus of either their family or their household, and bringing a newfound interest into the school. And it's working. And so if we could take that example and start transporting it out to other school districts, it cannot be, we cannot afford to ignore that issue, because that will come back and haunt us in a half of a generation from now. And so that there is hope, there is progress being made in that direction, and it hasn't been all that monumental of a resource allocation either. It's more of a change of the curriculum and bringing creative ideas to the school officials. That's really where I think the focus is. One side note that I'm beginning to pick up is the protection of data that's collected in public schools, whether it's through polls that are always going on, or test results, or however it's accumulated. Those records should be kept close to the vest, private, and we use them to point us in a direction to apply curriculum or change the way we educate kids. It should not be used to be sold to corporate entities in order to sell more products. It should be kept a strict private component within our school system.
Well, two things that I'd like to see. I think, first of all, I think we need to acknowledge whether our education system is working or not, where it is, where it's not, and then look at some new ideas in the cases it's not. Our core cities, and I mean, our two colleagues here represent core city areas, but I understand from reading about the test scores and the dropout rates, our core cities have some problems with performance of their schools. So let's acknowledge first that there's problems and what we're doing isn't working, and let's try something different. And I'm hoping we can come forward with some school choice ideas that'll especially help the metro area schools here in the core cities. And then out in the rural area, it's one of funding. Our rural schools don't get the level of funding the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the suburban districts do. And one of the areas that we're working hard to address that is an area of as I mentioned very earlier, the property tax work we're doing. We had about $90 million in the tax bill last year to provide subsidy to rural school districts who are undergoing construction levies. And what that would do is decrease the pressure on our farmers. Farmers in Minnesota are paying to a district in the state 10 times as much as their cousins in town. And so the proposal we had before us would take money from the general fund and then basically write down about 40% of the cost for the farmers, give it to the school district, and leaving the farmers at about 6 times as much they're paying on school construction levies as their cousins in town. So we're going to be pushing that forward even further this session. I led on that last time. I had those bills that were part of the bill that the governor vetoed. And so we're going to go even further, and I've started to embark on seeing if we can go to a house, garage, and an acre, which changes the tax base, and it does this so that they're even and we have actual fairness. And I think we can do it coupled with bringing in that $90 million or whatever that amount is in that same type of program and working them both together so that we can flush out the maybe the round off the corners on that transition from net tax capacity calculation to referendum market value, which brings the farms and the people in town at the same amount. So that's what we're hoping to work on. I've engaged with Representative Representative Marquardt in the House Democrat caucus, and also the governor's staff. And I think we can get there and push this even further to be an even better outcome for Minnesota's farm families.
Very just quickly, there's no lack of choice for Minneapolis students. I just saw a map a few days ago. One neighborhood, the students in one age cohort go to literally 40 or 50 other schools. So, I'm not opposed to school choice, but the schools that these young people are going to are not uniformly better than the Minneapolis public schools. A lot of these charters and other options are not turning in good academic achievement standards. So let's make sure if they do have choice, they're going to schools that are turning in good results. But the danger is that we're taking a lot of those dollars out of Minneapolis when those students go elsewhere.
You got the last word because we're out of time.